Welcome to the NOSA Unleashed podcast, where we want to expose and remove the stigma surrounding mental health by discussing real-life challenges and obstacles that keep us paralyzed and fearful to move forward. Let us inspire you to believe there is more to life than what you are currently experiencing. Now is the time to end the silence and pursue the path to purpose and fulfillment. We will do this together because no one stands alone. Welcome back to the NOSA Unleashed podcast. I'm Laura Burgoyne, joined here with my sister, Connie Blackwood. And today we're going to be continuing our conversation from last time, which if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to that one. And we talked really about the different signs and the different things you might experience when you're having anxiety and how to recognize it, because you can't really start to deal with it unless you start to recognize it first. And so feel free to go back and listen to that one. But today we want to talk specifically about strategies of how to overcome and how to process through the anxieties that we experience. And so welcome, Connie, to the conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here to talk about this because, we all need strategies to overcome anxiety. We all experience anxiety from one time or another in our lives. And to know how to deal with it in the moment is really, really important.
Mm-hmm. So can you, Connie, think of a time when you experienced anxiety and it was overwhelming, but then you were able to work through it? And what were some of those strategies that you used?
Um, so for me, the biggest thing I can think of is, we were having a big issue in our finances, and I was very stressed out about it. Um, and the first thing I did was pray about it. And then I
Okay.
was still anxious. And so then I talked to people about it, and they helped me pray through it. And they gave me encouragement, and they helped me come up with strategies on how to face that problem. And by the end of the day, that anxiety lifted, and I've been at peace ever since. And, not a lot has changed on that
Right.
front, but at the same time, I see hope and I see light at the end of the tunnel. And it was because of me talking to those trusted friends. It was because of me being able to shift my thoughts from all these negative things to the positive things out of that situation. So, for example, right, like we have to downsize, but I'm excited about the simplicity of life. I'm excited about um, getting to grow closer with family members that we'll be living with. And, there's a lot of things to be excited about. So instead of focusing on the drawbacks, like, you know, having to downsize and lose property or whatever, um, looking at the positive, we'll be debt free. Like, there's a lot to be thankful for. And so
Right.
I think focusing on the positive has helped me stay at peace in the midst of all of this. And, it's really helpful. Then I don't think I would have been able to do that had I not prayed about it first and then had counsel of trusted friends and then have all that culminate into what I walked forward from that point forward. Don't think I would have been able to. I would have been stuck, you know. I wouldn't have been able to move forward. I'd have just been stuck in that place of de hopelessness, basically, and despair.
Right. Because, if you hadn't done those strategies, you would have been stuck in that thought pattern,
Hmm.
right? Your
I'd been
mind would have
stuck.
been racing. Yeah.
I'd been stuck focusing on we're never going to get out of this mess. There's no way out. There's no clear path. We're just stuck here forever. And like, there's nothing more debilitating than that. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to like focus on the positive and keep my mind focused on the positive has actually helped us in numerous ways. And it's helped me keep my husband focused on the right things too, right? Uh, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
really thankful for my friends. I'm thankful that I have a God who loves me and cares for me and can help me through this stuff. And I'm not alone, and
Yeah,
that is a huge piece right there, knowing you're not alone.
absolutely. You brought up a really good point, which is, I think one of the many, really roots to the anxieties that we experience really originate in our thoughts,
Hmm.
right? When I think about when I'm experiencing anxiety, it comes down to, what am I believing about a certain situation, or what am I thinking about and a lot of times we focus on, like you said, the negatives, right? All the things that maybe are going to happen that we didn't want, or that we perceive will happen that may never even happen, right? And so it's really important that, in those times of anxiety, when you start feeling those symptoms of anxiety, like, the tension headaches, the inability to focus, the feeling overwhelmed, overly emotional, all of those things, that you slow down and you start evaluating, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What is the things that you're meditating on? And then, you know, find a solution for those things. And one of the things that I like to do is, when I kind of get into that state of being so overwhelmed and so anxious that I can't even think, I actually recognize those signs, and I personally need to take time aside and rest. And so what that does for me is, like, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm just like, I can't function. I can't do anything here. So I'm going to actually take time out. And I usually go have a nap. I go for a walk. I go do something relaxing that I like to do. And, I just take time to rest. And then when I come back to that situation, I reevaluate what's most important, right? It's kind of like taking all of those thoughts, putting them down on paper, like a brain dump, and then saying, okay, what is true, what's not, what's most important, what needs to be done, and reframe what it was that I was feeling anxious about. Because when we don't do that, when we don't take, control over our thoughts, those thoughts are going to control us. And so one of my strategies is that I have to take time away to recalibrate, to like rest. And then when I feel ready, I come back to those situations, and then I look at it from a rational mind, and then decide what's most important, and then move forward from there. Connie, do you have any other strategies that you like to use when
Oh
dealing with
yeah.
anxiety?
Um, Sometimes when I'm feeling anxious, I use essential oils. And so
Okay.
I have an essential oil called Adaptive, and I diffuse that in the room, and it helps a lot. And there's breathing exercises. That's one that Walter has just been introduced to by his psychologist, which I'm sure he's like really excited about, because I've seen him
Mhm.
using it. All of a sudden, he'll just sit up straight and start breathing really deep. And I'm like, oh, he's doing it. So he must be a little bit anxious right now. And it's amazing just how that really just gets you to calm your body. And sometimes calming your body opens up your mind so you can actually see things for how they are. Like
Right.
you take naps, right? So I use the essential oils to calm my body so I can think straight. Walter uses the breathing exercises to calm his body so he can think straight. And so we can ask ourselves those same questions, right? And
Hmm.
so I think there's lots of different ways that you can use to calm your body so that you can examine those thoughts, right? Um,
Hmm.
those are just a few I can think of in the moment. But there's one thing that I've learned that I think was kind of what I utilized that day with this is that scientifically, anxiety and excitement result in our body the same way, show up in our body the same way. So when we're excited, our brain, it looks the same as when it's anxious. It's just a matter of what your focused on at the time. And it's
Right.
interesting to know that, because then, anxiety is fueled by those negative thoughts, but excitement is fueled by the positive thoughts. And, my husband challenged me the first time he heard me talking about this. He's like, yeah, but if you're thinking positive thoughts, well, how, that's not going to work if it's not based on truth. And I'm like, well, you base it on truth. And he was like, well, give me an example. Well, let's say you're afraid of driving, right? You're scared you're going to get in an accident. You're scared that someone's going to cut you off. You're scared of getting a ticket, right? There's all these anxieties. And so instead of focusing on that, you look at, what if I meet somebody in the store when I go? What if they're
Mm-hmm.
really cool? What if I get a new friend? Right? Then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I want to go to the store and see if I find this person, right? Then you're excited and you're focused on what's going to happen when you get there. And it's not telling yourself a lie. When I go shopping, I meet new people all the time, right? Like, and some of them are
Mm-hmm.
really cool and exciting, and it's interesting. So it's not telling yourself a lie, it's just getting you to focus on something different, so that the unlikely event that you're scared about happening isn't your focus. The likely event is your focus. That's a positive one. And so it helps you get your mind off of the unlikeliness and the, possible horrible thing, and gets you excited about something that could probably happen. And I love the fact that, you know, so many times when I've been doing that, the probable thing actually happens, and the thing that I was worried about never happens. Like, it's pretty amazing how often that happens for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought it was really cool that science even shows us that this works. You can actually have more control over your thoughts than you think you do.
That's so true. And I actually, probably about 3 years ago, I actually learned this practice that I like to call belief work. And when
Mm,
I find that I have a lot of racing, unrelenting thoughts, what I actually do is in a journal, I actually write them all down. So all of
mm,
the negative thoughts, everything that's bombarding my mind, everything that's basically controlling my physical and emotional state in that moment through anxiety, I'll write them all down. And then one by one, I go through them and I replace it with something positive. And so when I write the negatives, I actually write it on like a loose leaf paper. And when I write the positive thoughts, I actually write it in a journal that I'm going to keep forever. And so let's say my thought was, I don't have enough time in my day to do everything, right? So then the way that I would reframe that is my time is valuable. Therefore, I only want to spend my time on what's most important. And so today I'm going to focus on only those three most important things, right? So instead of me worrying about the 100 things that will never get done and then I will get nothing done, I'm telling myself that I value time and I value what's most important in my life. And so I'm going to choose those things. And I give myself permission to let everything else wait. Right. And so, maybe another thought is, um, I'm not good enough. Right. And then I write something positive about, what, I have not only have training in this, but I'm also skilled. And so I will always put my best foot forward and do my very best job, which means the outcome will be a good thing, right? And so what I'll do is whatever that thing is that's been a relenting thought in my head, I will write it down, write the positive, and then I take those negatives and I destroy it. Whether you want to rip it up, throw in the garbage, burn it, whatever you want to do. So then I'm getting rid of the negative and then I read over the positives. And sometimes and it's more effective if you do it this way, you read them to yourself, right? And so some mornings I have to do that, right? Because I wake up already in the morning stirred up with all of these thoughts. And so that is a great way to actually start your morning, is if there's been anything that's been really pressing on you, anything that's been, you've been meditating on that's really been starting to cause you a lot of anxiety, try this belief work exercise and you'll see things shift. You'll see things shift in your, thinking. And you said, well, what about it not being true? Right. And so you could even write something like, even though I don't have enough time in my day to do all of these tasks, I will choose what is most important and I will, have joy in the process, right? Whatever that looks like for you. But it's powerful and it works. And it's about, taking those thoughts captive and
Hmm.
reframing what's going on in your life so that believe for the positive, you believe for something, like you said, that will bring excitement to you, that will propel you and, that you'll be motivated towards doing, right?
The other thing is, when you're talking about being overwhelmed, there is a practical strategy there too, is that, there's a lot of big tasks that take a long time to do, like especially when you're facing renos or you're facing moving or you're facing big transitions in life, then, there's a lot of tasks involved. So sometimes even sitting down and breaking that giant thing up into smaller bite-sized tasks, and then making, like Laura said, focusing on three important things. Well, what are the most three important steps that you need to do today to get you to that bigger goal at the end, right? And those are the ones that you focus on for that day. And it makes it easier for you to achieve those bigger goals, regardless of what they are, when you do it that way. Because if you're trying to look at the big picture, sometimes it can be such a big load that you're just like, I can't even fathom how to do this. That's why we
Yeah.
have to create the path and start moving forward slowly on this path. Otherwise, we'll never get there.
Yeah. I actually heard a couple weeks ago a strategy. It's called the 333 strategy, or
Hmm.
actually they call it the 333 method, actually. And so when I saw it, I thought, I'm going to try this, right? Because as you know, Connie, we're working on this large edition. We have a lot going on right now. It's our spring season. My husband's back to full-time work. We have this farm we're taking care of. I have multiple businesses. Like it's an overwhelming time. And so this method is you spend 3 hours on a big long-term task, right? So for example, we're building an addition. So, dedicate 3 hours of my day to work on our build project. Then the second category is three smaller projects. So in a day, complete three smaller projects. So what are, you know, maybe you make a master list of all of the projects that you have to do that are on the smaller scale that could be done in maybe half an hour to an hour and write them on a master list, right? And then pick only three that you want to tackle for that day. And then the last section is three maintenance items. So what are three things that have to happen regularly that would help, your day go better and help move things forward? And so I started implementing this about a week or so ago. And I haven't been successful every day, but the days that I've implemented this method, I, you know, I get the things done, and then at the end I can be like, I feel satisfied. I feel like, you know what, I got some things accomplished today, right? But if we're always just like investing all of our time on the big things, all of the little things kind of fall through the cracks, and then we feel like we're failing everywhere, right? And so I loved that method where it's like, 333. Dedicate some of your time in a day to do, just those maintenance things and then those small tasks and then 3 hours on the big one. And, if you spend 3 hours every day on that big project, like Connie said, taking those smaller steps as you're doing that, in a month from now, that's 3 hours a day times 30 days. That's like 90 hours. I had to do the math. 3 times 30 is 90. 90 hours towards that larger task. Like imagine how far you could bring that project, right? And so I thought that was a really cool method that I've started to implement. And I'm starting to see some of these little projects, these little tasks, getting done because I'm like, I only have to do three. And what are the three most important ones I need to do today? And I do them. I think this morning, even I got all three of my maintenance items and one of my small projects done even before 9 a.m. Right? So when you look at that, it really empowers you to be like, I can do this. I've got this. Like, this doesn't have to be so overwhelming, and it doesn't have to create anxiety for me because I'm so worried about things not getting done.
That's a very good point. I love that. I made notes. What what's a time lately that you've experienced anxiety and what have you done?
I just need to take time out. So, thankfully we have a loft above our barn. And so, when I start feeling that anxiety rising, when I start feeling like that overwhelm, I start feeling like I'm having a difficult time coping, I just take time away, time by myself, time to recalibrate and rest, really reconsider what are the things going on in my life and what's important and what's not and what can wait. And, people might rationalize, well, I don't have time to rest, right? I don't have time to put my whole life on pause and take time out. But my rationale is if I don't do that, then I don't get anything done and then I feel even more anxious,
Mhm.
right? So that is honestly my best strategy for me personally and my character, especially being an introvert. I need to spend time by myself to rest and um, usually nap and sleep, right? Because a lot of times too, when I'm feeling anxious, is because I haven't been getting enough sleep. I am overwhelmed, and I'm not feeling like I can cope very well. So that is honestly my best strategy.
Awesome.
So as we close up today, Connie, is there anything that you would like to share as we end today?
Yeah. Basically, if you're feeling anxious and you're unsure of where to go, um, first things first, um, make sure that you know what the trigger is. Because if you don't and you just, you know, try to do something to fix it, but you don't know what you're fixing, then you might fix the wrong thing and still be where you are. So some of that takes you being completely honest with yourself when you're evaluating where your trigger is. And sometimes it's hard to do because sometimes we don't want to look at places we don't like, but at the same time we need to. And so when you're examining why am I anxious? What is the root of all this? Be honest with yourself and go from there. Because the only way you're actually going to deal with the actual problem is if you're honest with yourself and you can get to that root and you can deal with it. And
Mhm.
then find what strategy works for you to calm your body down and be able to get back to the rational way of thinking so that you can break it down and figure it out and implement some of the strategies we shared today. Take that anxiety and turn it into excitement if you can, because you'd be
Mhm.
surprised at how that will propel you forward instead of keeping you stuck.
Awesome. For those of you that are listening, I do want to mention that we do have an upcoming webinar happening on Thursday, July 3rd. We meet online on Zoom, and we love to have you join us. We meet from 7 to 9, and the first hour is where Connie and I share more about anxiety and more about this topic. And then the last hour um, is not recorded, but it's an opportunity for us to, collaborate, ask questions, and really share our story, and for you guys to share yours. And if there's an area that you're struggling in and you want, some feedback, you want some strategies, you want us to kind of give you some input, that's when that happens. And so we welcome you to join us live so that you can also be part of that Q&A time afterwards. And if you want to register for that so you can get the private Zoom link, you just do that on our website at nosafoundation.com. So we look forward to seeing you potentially at our webinar, and also, as always, next time on the NOSA Unleashed podcast. See you later. Bye.
Bye.